Welcome to Mindfork. Howdy folks. These last few weeks have been a bit of a doozy, still reeling off the fact that I had to rewrite this video, but we won't get too much into that. Why? Because for the last few weeks, Poppy Playtime has been pumping out all kinds of new teasers, sneak peeks, and that sweet lore for us to uncover. That being said, I am only one man, so I can't get to everything as fast as I would like sometimes. Because of that, we're going to section this topic off into 3 videos. You heard me right, 3 videos in 3 weeks. Completely unheard of. Today, we'll go over the Nightmare Critters, Mob Entertainment's newest squad of unethical and dangerous toy monsters. Next week, we'll go through a theory relevant to Chapter 4, but not because it was brought up recently. We've just gotten to the point where, amidst all the things happening, introducing it now would make more sense than later. Though, in reality, that theory is one I've had coming since the release of Chapter 2, so get excited for that. And the final one, around the start of November perhaps, there will be an analysis on the Chapter 4 ARG. Nothing new for loyal players of the Poppy Playtime series. I'm sure I have a scathing commentary on the usage of ARGs in modern mascot horror games, but that's not for today. The reason this one will be made so much later is because even as we speak, the ARG is throwing out all kinds of things for us to go over, and I want a bit of time for it to settle down. The reason this video took so long to come out in the first place is that when I started writing, the ARG had nothing in it. Come this time last week, however, and things started happening piece by piece every few hours.
I learn something new about you every day.
Yeah, not a fan. So, I made the executive decision to wait until it's done. But I still have other things to talk about, which is why you're still seeing my face today. Speaking of, today, we're getting spooky. How relevant too, since Halloween is right around the corner. So buckle up boys, cause today we're talking about the Nightmare Critters. Let us start off with the most simple question. What exactly are the Nightmare Critters? Much like the Smiling Critters, the Nightmare Critters are a collection of Care Bear type toys that seem to be aimed towards angsty teenagers rather than children. Bubba Chops, Alistair and Hawk Tui. What do you mean it's not right? Oh, sorry, it's just Tui, to name a few. I'm not the first person to make that joke, and I will definitely not be the last. As for what they actually are, I have no idea. However, though, there are a lot of theories floating around, but the one I subscribe to the most, you should do that by the way, is that they are rejected toy concepts for Playtime Co. The Catnap Recall VHS video and the Poppy Playtime Orientation Notebook both talk about the Smiling Critters fiasco, so you probably already know the story, but to understand where I'm going with it, I'll have to give you a brief history. After the booming success of Huggy Wuggy, Playtime Co. decided to roll in the Smiling Critters line. Everyone thought they would do just as well, if not better than Huggy, and the sales targets reflected that. However, a little while after release, the Catnap toy began giving children nightmares, and so, hoping to recoup some of their losses, they recalled this one toy and took it off the market, pushing the rest of the critters without them. But to no avail. They had completely lost the public's trust and couldn't really do anything about it. I mention this in relation to the Nightmare Critters for one reason: target sales. It is very common practice for companies to roll out a new line of toys and have the next line all drawn up and ready to push into production. It's so they can minimize the time between the profits of the first line and the release of the second to capitalize on their popularity in order to increase sales. However, this comes with the risk that if the first line fails, the second line, which I've already poured a lot of money into by that point, has to be discarded. It's happened in real life numerous times. Mattel's He-Man and the Masters of the Universe line in the mid-1980s went through a similar thing. Initially, He-Man was a massive success, as you can imagine, but after oversaturating the market with too many variations, interest quickly declined, and Mattel, who had been developing a spin-off line called Powers of Grayskull, scrapped the full rollout when sales tanked. This is why we haven't seen any mention of the Nightmare Critters anywhere prior to this point, because technically, they shouldn't exist. When Smiling Critters died, so too did the future of it, which would have been the Nightmare Critters. Despite this, toys were made though, since Bubba Chops literally shows up in the trailer. But that's why they got to this point. What about how they got here? Well, the nightmare critters themselves are very likely an exceptionally small part of Chapter 4, even though Bubba Chops looks like the main villain this time around. If the previous chapters are anything to go by, then they're not. The main antagonist probably won't be fully revealed until right before the release of the chapter. It happened to Catnap, it happened to Mommy Longlegs, it'll happen this time too. So if Mob Entertainment is following the same promotional progression they did for Chapter 2 and 3, the Nightmare Critters should be characters that have very little relevance to our new journey. Mob always likes to give us everything but the antagonist at first anyway. We got the gas mask before we even got what was making the gas after all. And although this next part is a little bit of conjecture, most of my stuff is conjecture, who am I kidding? It's possible that since the Smiling Critters are child friendly in universe but antagonistic in game, that Mob Entertainment is doing the same thing with the Nightmare Critters but in reverse. Being edgy and full of teenage angst in universe but being allies or just plain protagonistic in the new chapter. The Steam page says as much anyway, new characters and allies. Side note too, since we're talking about allies in the series, because of this idea, Ollie being revealed as one of these nightmare critters wouldn't surprise me in the slightest either. However, I have something very specific to say about that in part 2's theory, so check it out for a more comprehensive analysis of it. Upon seeing the new trailer, I thought it was odd that this was the first time we were seeing the nightmare critters in any capacity, especially since the two groups should be linked together, as they're clearly spin-offs. So why are they completely absent from every chapter then? We can somewhat justify it in universe since they were a failed project. Why would you market something that was never released after all? But we see the toy version in the trailer, so why haven't we seen any of the nightmare critters, alive or otherwise, in the game until now? Well, it might be because they don't want to hurt you like the others. In the trailer, we see Bubba Chops and an insane amount of deceased toys, several mountains of bodies and blood, but it doesn't seem like any of them have been eaten. Rather, you can see all the pieces. They're just disconnected from one another, attacking and killing toys but not eating them? That's weird. But why do that? The images we see in the Steam page are all pretty straightforward. In the first image we have a lobby area leading to at least 6 different halls or rooms, we can tell from the coloured markers on the ground, so this is clearly a big space. Aside from that, both doorways we see have bars or grates along them. Combined with the strange box symbol on the wall and the security cameras, it reflects a containment site or a prison of some kind. We should also note that it's not as child friendly as the other locations, heavily industrialised, no characters, speech bubbles or cardboard cutouts. The fifth image further supports this, since there's a long hall of containment cells. We know that they're cells since they have food tray slots, and they're enclosed. Although the only one we get a good look into has a hole in the back of it, though it looks more like degradation rather than by design. Back to the point, if these are prison cells, and if the nightmare critters are attacking toys for some other reason than to eat them, then what's the correlation between the two? Here's my theory. The nightmare critters were made to kill other toys. A bit like our security huggy on the top floor, these little menaces are meant to prevent the escape of any toy that walks through those gates. I get it though, we literally faced these smiling critters and all it took to evade them was a couple of well-placed flares, which seems like a terrible security system. And you'd be right if we were talking about the smiling critters, but let's look at the facts. 1. Bubba Chops, this thing, is intelligent enough to create traps, doing so to the dog toy in the trailer. 2. The absence of any nightmare critters in the trailer implies that every toy but them are the only ones getting preyed on. Smiling critters spared their own, why wouldn't nightmare critters do the same? And 3. Episode 4 will clearly take place in and around this containment facility. These 3 facts imply that the nightmare critters were once being used as a security system. It's not a new idea for the toys to be repurposed into serving security-based roles, Huggy Wuggy and Boxy Boo respectively after all, and we should also bring attention to the condition of the place, especially in regards to the main hub area. Every location is extremely clean, no blood, no bodies, barely any destruction. Every location we see in the promo material on the Steam page is pretty well kept. And it should be clear why. The factory floors, the game station areas, and Playcare are all places where the Hour of Joy took place. The only exception is the containment floors beneath the factory. We know that the Hour of Joy didn't reach this place because not a single location in the VHS we see is in an area we haven't seen before, which means that the Hour of Joy never reached the bottom floors. But how could that be? It's not like toys were locked out or anything, they're still down there. So why wasn't the place flooded with homicidal experimentations? Well, there are two explanations. One, they were either kept out, or two, they were stopped. And that's the gist of it. To summarise, I think that the nightmare critters were conceptualised while the smiling critters were released, but never made due to the catnap backlash. Say that one 10 times fast. And to keep their effort from going to waste, they reused the idea in the most secretive part of the factory in order to act as a security system. Because of this, they'll prioritise attacking experiments over us, be generally friendly towards the player, and maybe even help us traverse the factory. One of them could also be Ollie, but there's no evidence for that. I also didn't mention this, but whether or not they're also part of the Bigger Bodies initiative remains to be seen. That being said, the main antagonist of this chapter will probably be one, just not a Nightmare Critter version since we already got that in Catnap. But again, I won't get into that because that's something I plan to talk about in my ARG video later down the line anyway. Is a bunch of it circumstantial? Yeah, my videos are built on that. Can it be disproven? Not yet, but there's a lot of time left before chapter 4 comes out, so we've either hit the nail on the head or we haven't, so that's that, I suppose. Be sure to check out my next video if you're interested in more. Come this time next week, it should be up and ready, so wait in suspense for that. I'll leave it in the end card when it comes out. Join me for the ride if you fancy, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.